All right, let's dive into the world of data. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on some of the most powerful statistical tools out there, the ones that help us find the hidden stories that numbers have to tell. We all face this, right? Whether you're running a business or just trying to figure something out in your own life, you have a hunch, a gut feeling. But how do you really know if you're right? Well, the answer is to stop guessing and start listening to the data.
And that brings us to our first big idea, using data to make smart choices. To make this feel real, we're going to follow the story of a small business owner who's trying to do exactly that. So picture this, the owner of a local coffee shop. They're super passionate, but they're swimming in questions. Which ads are actually working? Are people happier with the new menu items? Instead of just going with their gut, they've decided to let the numbers be their guide. Okay, so let's tackle a classic problem you see everywhere. You've got two things, and you need to figure out which one is actually better. And here's the first puzzle for a coffee shop owner. They've started using these new, fancy coffee beans. They cost more, so are they worth it? They've collected customer ratings for both the old and new beans. So how do they actually compare them in a way that isn't just, looking at them? This is where our first couple of tools come into play, the z-test and the t-test. Both are designed to tell you if the average or the mean of two groups is different enough to matter. But the big question is, which one do you use? So, how do you pick? Well, it often boils down to how much data you have. A z-test is great when you have a big sample size. But our coffee shop, they've only just started collecting ratings, so they don't have a ton of data yet. And that makes the t-test the perfect tool for the job here. But that, of course, leads to the next question. What if our owner wants to compare more than just two things? Let's say they're trying out 3 different store layouts to see which one boosts sales the most. You can't just run a bunch of t-tests. That gets messy. So what's the right move? The answer is a tool called ANOVA, which stands for Analysis of Variance. It's built for exactly this situation. It lets you look at 3, 4, or even more groups all at once and tells you if at least one of them is performing differently from the others. It's a much cleaner way to get the big picture. Okay, so comparing averages is one thing, but what about relationships between different choices people make? This is where we start hunting for those hidden patterns in how customers behave. Here's the next puzzle for our owner. They want to know if the loyalty program is actually changing what people buy. See, we're not comparing numbers like sales figures anymore. We're comparing categories. Are you a member or not? Did you buy a pastry or not? For this kind of question, we need a totally different tool, the chi-square test. It's designed specifically to see if there's a real, significant connection between two things that you can sort into different buckets or categories. Just look at this table for a second. At a glance, it kind of looks like there's a link between gender and which product people prefer, right? A chi-square test is what proves it. It tells us if this pattern is a real thing or if it could have just happened by random chance. So, now we know how to check if a connection exists. But the next obvious question is, how strong is that connection? And which way does it go? Our coffee shop owner has noticed something. On hot days, they sell way more iced coffee. I mean, that sounds obvious, doesn't it? But data can tell us exactly how much more. Is it just a little bump in sales, or is it a massive spike? We need a tool that can measure that relationship. And for that, we have the Pearson correlation. I love this thing. It gives you one single number from -1 to +1 that perfectly sums up the relationship. It's so clean. Let's break down what those numbers actually mean. So a correlation of +1 means it's a perfect positive relationship. In our coffee shop, that would mean for every single degree the temperature goes up, iced coffee sales increase by a totally predictable amount. They're moving in perfect lockstep. And on the other side, a -1 is a perfect negative relationship. Think about the link between temperature and hot chocolate sales. As the weather gets warmer, hot chocolate sales would predictably go down. One goes up, the other goes down. So we've learned to compare groups and measure relationships. But this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the single most important lesson in all of data analysis. Honestly, it's more of a warning. You have probably heard this phrase a million times, but it is the golden rule. Just because two things seem to move together doesn't mean one is causing the other. And if you forget this, you can come to some seriously wrong conclusions. Our owner finds one last pattern in the data, and this one is alarming. There's an almost perfect correlation between how much ice cream they sell and the number of people who slip and fall inside the shop. The data is crystal clear, but what on earth does that mean?
And this right here is the trap. If you only look at the correlation, you might think something ridiculous. Obviously, eating ice cream doesn't make people fall down. So what is actually happening?
And here it is, the big reveal. There's a hidden factor at play, the hot weather. The heat makes people want to buy more ice cream. The heat also leads to more water on the floor, from condensation, from melting ice, from people tracking water in, which of course causes more slips. The two things are linked, but one isn't causing the other.
And that's really the big idea here. These statistical tools are incredibly powerful for making better decisions, but they're not magic. They demand that we stay curious and think critically. You always have to ask yourself not just what the data is showing you, but why it might be showing you that. What hidden story or what delusion have you not seen yet?